Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Taylor Lowry. I work in student success and career development at Otterbein University. I also serve as a historian for OCPA, and I'm serving on the professional development committee. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our panelists who are serving on the roundtable today. In just a minute, I am going to have the panelists introduce themselves, but throughout this session, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop those into the chat box and we will get those asked to our panelists. So first, we just want to go ahead and get started. I'm going to have our panelists start with introductions. So if you want to go and say your role in your institution and just your background in higher ed and kind of your career path. And I'll call on, let's see, Kia, you are first on my screen, so I'm going to call on you, and then we can kind of just go through.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you. My name is Kia McKinney. I am the Director of Undergraduate Student Recruitment, Retention, and Engagement at the Ohio State University College of Education and Human Ecology. Also, I guess, have experience prior to coming to Ohio State, and I've been there 12 years now. I just had a work anniversary. It's funny how you have a plan for like 2 to 3 years and you're like, oh, or 12 or 13 or whatever, it's fine. But I've been there that long. Prior to that, I worked at Columbus State as a transfer advisor for a few years. And then I also have a background in access at the University of Akron, where I am an alum. So that's basically been an overview of my career so far. So, but thank you for asking me to join you all today.
I can go next if you want me to.
That'll be great, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shelby. Actually, that's my maiden last name. My new last name is W-O-I-T-H. It's pronounced Voigt. So if you search for me on OSU's website, don't be confused. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor, and I'm currently serving as the mental health counselor in the College of Nursing at Ohio State. I'm actually really new to Ohio State. I just started in May, so it's been very interesting to start a new role in the midst of a pandemic. So I actually have not been on campus yet. I was working at Columbus State Community College, so same as Kia, I was working at Columbus State up until May for about 3.5 years in the counseling services office there, doing higher education mental health work. My background, I went to Ohio University for undergrad and Walsh University for graduate school, and I have some background working with domestic violence shelters, trauma work, etc. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Ryan, I think you're up next for me.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Ryan Breckbill. I serve as the Executive Director of Career Development in Student Success and Career Development at Otterbein University. So I'm privileged to work with Taylor every day. I just had work anniversary as well. We call them, or at least I call it, an Otterversary. I just celebrated my 9th Otterversary there. So we'll be starting year 10. Prior to that, I was at Denison University in Career Services for 9 years. Prior to that, in career services at Vanderbilt University for 2 years. So both undergrad and graduate work at Bowling Green State University. So I'm excited to be here, grateful to be part of the panel.
Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, Ashley.
Hello, so my name is Ashley, and I apologize that my webcam for some reason does not work with Zoom. I am currently a counselor at Columbus State Community College, and I have been there since 2016. My background, I actually went to undergrad and grad school at Ohio State University. And during my internship, I got started working in higher ed by doing a year counseling at Capitol. So thank you for having me here today, and I'm excited to be a part of this panel.
Awesome, thank you all. So the first question that we have for you is, how has COVID-19 impacted your students, position, unit, and institution, and really any of the work that you are doing as we prepare for fall semester?
I'll go ahead and kick off with that. So we have been, as everyone has, impacted in unimaginable ways. So when the shutdown first happened, our team moved all of our career services, resources, and information workshops to, we created a YouTube channel and put all kinds of videos there. All of our resources, we kind of just doubled and put as, online as much as we could, or reorganize them so they were easier to access. Since then, our office has been directed to merge with our Center for Student Success. So what was a team of 4, now we are a team of 10, and we are going through that process of trying to merge our missions and the way in which we serve students. So it has, it's been a great experience. It's been a tremendous learning experience, but we were part of student affairs. We're now part of academic affairs. So it has changed our operations in a great deal.
So I can go next. I would say, I think I'll second that notion. To say that it's been a transition is an understatement. Moving to a virtual world, again, I manage undergraduate recruitment. And so in the midst of yield season, right, where every hired recruitment professional is grinding to get that incoming freshman class to seal the deal, it's almost like we went to bed one night and then we woke up the next day and we're like, oh, everything's virtual. And so that scramble was something else, to say the least. And so I think just trying to transition everything to a virtual environment, supporting staff in the midst of that organized chaos, right, which is kind of what it is. At that momentum, at the same time, everyone has their own anxieties, fears. It was a lot to do that. I think as an institution, the university tried to, do the best that they could to provide information, guidance, support. I mean, it happened so fast, right? I think, that was the big thing. And then in an effort to support staff, but also to not drop the ball, because the ball would be the students who also had their own plethora of anxieties, concerns, not being able to touch folks. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm a hugger, which at this point, I think there's no more hugging allowed in the universe, so that's fine. But, it's something to be able to look at your students in the face and kind of have a touch point. If something's going on, you can kind of navigate what they might need based on that. So trying to depend on a virtual environment to do that was a challenge. And I think overall, it was just a very heavy thing. I think we didn't really realize the weight of that process until we made it through spring, and we kind of took 2 seconds to breathe before we started picking up, what summer and fall were going to look like. But I would also say, adjusting to that lack of physical engagement, right, was a challenge, but also challenges with accessibility. And checking bias around that. And so not making assumptions when students didn't have their cameras on, or they weren't able to engage, trying to keep some of those things in mind, the silences that happen in the midst of presentations because of technology lags and things like that. So honestly, I think when it comes down to the way that COVID has impacted just the work that we do, it's impacted it in every way possible, some of which we won't grasp the severity or the intensity of until a year from now when we're looking back, right? It's that fatigue that settles in, but you just kind of work through the fatigue. So I do think that it's challenged us to really revision, reconsider, reevaluate the way that we do the work that we do, just in every way.
I'll just add a little bit to that, because you guys definitely covered a lot of really good points that I would 100% agree with. It has been extremely impactful for both, us as employees and students as well. For me personally, I transitioned jobs in the midst of this, so that was really interesting. So at Columbus State, a lot of just going from in-person to virtual world was something I never anticipated having to do. I did not ever plan on being a telemental health counselor. I didn't know anything about what that was. So I had to definitely get some personal training and building my skills in that area to be able to service students during this time. And then when I was transitioning over to Ohio State, onboarding was very weird. I have yet to meet any of my fellow colleagues in person. And so doing a lot of Zoom meetings, trying to build relationships has been a challenge just virtually. And then continuing to figure out those next steps with so much unknown, right, has been challenging. For students, I would say that unknown piece has been one of the biggest transitions of just what's going to happen to my classes, my life, my grades, my next steps, clinicals, whatever it might be. Figuring out how to maintain some type of structure and balance in their life, right? Doing everything virtually looks so different. There's, not as much accountability from professors, but a lot more on yourself then. So I would say that. And then, across the board for myself personally and students, just feeling very isolated and alone. I saw that coming up as a recurring issue for people, is how do I stay connected, right? How do I, maintain some level of normalcy in my life during these very, challenging times. So that's just some of the stuff that I saw as well, in addition to what Ryan and Kia had said.
And I think everybody covered a lot. And Shelby and I both work with students, and so we see, I agree with her, the same clinical concerns coming up. One other thing that was challenging initially with COVID was our messaging, because with our state licensing board, previously we were not even able to do telehealth without training and HIPAA compliant, software. And then every day the message was changing from our licensing board, which then it would change to our students. And so I think that was also a challenge that I noticed of how do we keep students up to date with the most current information about what we are able to offer them. Initially, we weren't legally or ethically able to take on new students, and then overnight that changed, and then the platforms that we were allowed to use changed. And so that was something that was also difficult to navigate, just the daily, what are we allowed to do and how do we get that out to folks?
Great, thank you. So of course, all of you have talked about a number of challenges that you faced in your positions during all of this. So thinking about one of the larger challenges that you faced, how have you or your unit or the institution gone about addressing those challenges?
I can take a quick start on that one. One of the things that we have done as a team, because again, it's more difficult to reach students and get that information out as consistently as we would like to, is we've really tried to partner with other people on our campus, that being faculty, staff. We've done different presentations on mental health warning signs, how to be empathetic with students and listen to some of those concerns, maybe so they don't even necessarily need a counseling referral right away. Not like we're training people to be counselors, because that's not their job, but how can we have different allies on campus who are helping support our mission? And so I think we've really been focusing on our campus outreach a lot, and then still just trying to, whenever we can, meet with students and tell them the services that we offer. But it really has been a time for us to connect, I think, a little bit better with our campus community.
I'll echo that collaboration as well. We as a team thought, well, gosh, what's going to happen to student internships that are scheduled for this summer? What's going to happen to our seniors and their job prospects? And it's been across the board. Some a lot of internships went virtual, but a lot were also canceled. So we wanted to say, how can we help our students position themselves to either look for some virtual internships that may be available, or find some ways to continue to gain skills over the summer. So I would say that our social media posting and connection to our resources increased significantly. We did some partnerships with our friends in alumni relations and athletics to do interviews with alumni just to get their stories and put those on our YouTube channel. But we were just looking for ways that we can continue to engage with students, to let them know that we're still here as a resource, whether you're looking for an internship, whether your internship was canceled, whether you've just graduated and maybe your start date for your job has been pushed back, maybe your job offer has been rescinded, but we just wanted to be messaging more frequently to our students to say, we are here as a resource, we want to help you, we can help you, and we needed our campus partners to be part of that. It's been a mixed bag. We've heard from some students, but not the level that I think we thought we would hear from in terms of their searching for internships or full-time positions after graduation.
I would say, one of the biggest challenges, and there have been a lot, obviously, I think student affairs professionals, regardless of what area you work in, we pride ourselves on making the gray, black, and white. So if you had to kind of find a tie that binds us all together, it's making the gray, black, and white for students, families, each other, right? That's kind of what we do. That's been a challenge. So I think trying to manage finding peace in that gray to some extent and pausing has been the biggest challenge. Information changes on a daily basis. That part of it makes me crazy. It's not in my planner. I didn't write that part down. I'm not sure what's going on here. But I think, as far as trying to tackle that ambiguity, there's been a number of different town halls and, task forces and committees and returning to campus committee. I mean, there's been all kinds of things as far as that goes. I do feel like there's been a push to try to communicate out and set up support as much as possible, right? As fast as possible. And so all those things are swirling, but I think just trying to manage, I guess, the anxiety that stems from not knowing, or the anxiety of not necessarily having as much control as we're used to, right? I think that's been the biggest challenge. So there's a number of initiatives that happen, but I think just trying to find the piece of things are changing all the time. So how do we focus on the things that we have control over? And so that's been an adjustment, because we're a team of doers, right? And so focusing that doing on, all right, for example, we don't have control over when we go back to campus, when we return to the office. I mean, there's so many things out of our hands. We can't control, what this recruitment event is going to look like, or what these touch points look like, or we can control the check-ins that we're having with each other and things like that. So a number of resources have been made available, for medical, mental health, from a college perspective, from a team perspective, from a university perspective. But I think the need to continuously check in with each other. How are you? And not just for the sake of like, oh, hey, how are you? I don't really care. I have this other thing to say, but genuinely like, how are you? How can I support you? I think that's been, I think the most effective way on a personal level anyway, that we've been trying to manage everything that's been going on.
So I'll just piggyback off exactly the things that she was saying. So all those are awesome, and things that I really try to instill in the students I work with. The two big things I was thinking of when you asked that question was like communication. That was like such a challenge, right? Like, how are we going to communicate with students? What wording are we using? What verbiage? What are we telling them, especially when we don't really even know everything? Being transparent about what we do and don't know, right? And then self-care is like the other thing I was thinking. So speaking on like a personal, like what I try to do is I try to really encourage students to be transparent about like their needs with me, and also like their faculty, professors, everyone, because the more we know of what the students are concerned about, the better we can help them address it, as well as, get those questions answered. Maybe it's things we didn't even consider. So definitely figuring out how to communicate with students and how to be transparent both ways, so that way everyone can kind of move forward together. And then self-care, I think the College of Nursing specifically, and Ohio State as a whole, has really, really been pushing taking care of yourself during this time. Lots of, as Kia said, webinars, town halls, informational sessions about, keeping up to date, taking care of yourself, ideas about coping. I see it like left and right. It's always popping up in my emails. So I think that's one way Ohio State has been trying to address this, is really just giving as much information, beneficial information as they can out to students, faculty, staff, everyone, that can be useful during this time.
Perfect. So what do you anticipate being the biggest change for a fall semester? And this one's kind of a two-parter. And the second half is, what long-term impacts do you foresee?
I think this is, you can go any direction, but I think the most, how we interact with everyone, how we interact with students, how we interact with colleagues and employers and alumni and parents, and just all of those interactions have and will continue to change. Some of us are returning to campus, others are working remotely. We'll be having we'll be in our offices, perhaps on campus, but having remote meetings with someone who's next door to us. So I think for me, that's where I went first. Long term, I wonder, our interactions with students are so important in helping them develop the way in which they represent themselves to faculty members and peers and potential employers and graduate school representatives. So I'm really cognizant of how not having those opportunities to engage with students face to face. Kia, you're a hugger. I'm a handshaker. That's one of the first measures that I try to help students make sure they have a confident handshake, and we're not going to be able to do that. So I just wonder how those interactions for our students and how they are in these virtual environments are going to help in their development. I think the same of our young professionals within the field. Shelby, you mentioned you haven't met your coworkers face to face. Those are some real challenges that are going to have some long lasting lingering effects.
I can kind of go off that. For the fall, I think it's still a lot unknown. But it appears as though things will continue similarly from the summer into the fall, of a lot of people working virtually, as well as there will be some people coming back, but definitely not in any capacity of what it was previously. For me and my role specifically, I will be continuing to work virtually throughout the fall semester. There's going to be a lot of protocols and policies in place of how students can come on campus, accessing resources, getting in their dorms. It's all going to look so different. So, students are going to have a lot of questions. And I think it's super important that we be there as a resource for them as they navigate this really new situation. And then long term, once again, speculation. I have no actual, ability to know what could happen, but I would say I think this is going to impact certain people's jobs forever being remote, is just a prediction that I have. I know space is hard to come by at Ohio State from what I hear. So I would imagine that there may be some roles that they determine just don't need to be on campus, and that can free up space for other roles or other things. Or maybe people doing part-time work, part-time on campus, part-time off campus. So I think that will be maybe a forever change from this as well, along with the other things that Ryan had mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. We could probably have a day-long conversation about all the ways that things are going to change. I think this notion of pivoting is going to be the biggest need or whatever to address the change, and just being intentional. We all have to rethink the way that we do our work, and that's hard. A lot of us at this point, we've got our thing, right? I always joke about the Kia show when it comes down to doing presentations or engaging with students, and I laugh, but it's kind of a thing, right? The Kia show might not translate the same virtually, or the Kia might need to readjust the Kia show. And so that's literally rethinking and reconsidering the way that I engage with students. And just understanding that we're all in this together. So being more intentional. We can't have a day-long recruitment event. We can't have a day-long, thing where we're just going to have students held captive on Zoom for 8 hours. That's not reality. So the things that we usually kind of bank on to seal the deal or to make students feel a part of this bigger family, right? Not necessarily so much. So being intentional in the time that we are asking students to be with us, whether that's an appointment, whether that's a conversation, but being intentional with their time. There's a million other things going on, literally. So how do we make the most of that? And I think as far as a long-term impact, again, there are a number of them, but at least as an administrator and as a supervisor, as a member of a team, I would say, developing contingency plans for unexpected absences. It's not that can't ever happen, but at least in my experience, I'm fortunate I have a team of specialists per se, right? And it's not that we can't overlap, but everybody has a thing. Everybody has a thing they do very well. That's their thing. And at any moment, just trying to be prepared for the fact that, if that person needs to be out of the office, how do you keep the balls in the air? And how do you even know what those balls are? I mean, student affairs, we're known, we do the thing, we love the thing, we do all the things, right? And so when it comes down to that list of what we do, there's a million things not even on the list because we just do the things. So even trying to be prepared for unexpected absences, and how do you keep the ball rolling, and how do you anticipate any and everything that might happen? I keep making jokes, probably inappropriately, about I'm going to just pack my spin-a-night bag and be on the porch waiting for the aliens to come and the killer hornets, because boy, oh boy, 2020 just continues to get better and better as we progress. What we thought might be a short stint or a short thing. I mean, this is going, right? This is not ceasing yet. So just trying to make sure that we're not dropping the ball, that we are able to still support students, and that as much as the personal, and the Kia show and the insert name here show, is a thing, that we can continue this work, if one or more people are pulled from the equation for whatever reason. Sometimes too, just unexpected mental health days. I've gotten those calls. Hey, I have a headache. I know what that means. Have the headache, binge watch Netflix, take care of you, and we'll figure out what that means. So, yeah, I think that's just a very different model. While it should be a thing already, it's just a very different model, I think, than we're used to operating within.
I think, and this might be applicable to everybody, but I particularly know for Columbus State, one of the ways that I see this impacting our future might actually be a little bit on the optimistic side, in the fact that we'll be able to reach students virtually, potentially moving forward. And I know sometimes if a student wants to meet with a counselor, transportation can be a barrier, time can be a barrier. And if we are able to continue to meet with students on the phone or through webcam, I think that's something that can actually be beneficial in the long term. Not to say it's ideal, and not to say that we wanted this to happen, but that is something that I think hopefully will help moving forward to keep people accessible from the college to our students. For the fall, though, I think our concerns echo everything that was said already, of just how do we maintain doing what we're doing, especially if people are out, or if things aren't working as they used to. But just trying to add a little optimism in there, that I think the long term, it could have hopefully some beneficial things for us as well.
Thank you. So a lot of you in your answers have mentioned that the support and resources that are being given to you by your institution or professional associations. So the next question I have is, what resources are you personally taking advantage of? And then, are there resources that maybe you have created for other staff and students to take advantage of?
I can go first. It's like everyone's like waiting, like who's gonna go, right? So like I said previously, Ohio State has definitely been sending out lots of updates and emails with many great resources of webinars and trainings and town halls to attend just to stay up to date with what's going on. They definitely keep lots of updated emails on the current situation when things will be opening. So they're trying to really just give as much information as possible within reason of what they know. So I definitely appreciate that, as well as all my supervisors have been very open of, if I know something, I will tell you. I'm not going to withhold that information from you. So I definitely have been taking advantage of those resources. One, just to learn about the college, because like I said, I'm like a few months in. So I'm still just trying to learn about Ohio State in general, let alone Ohio State during COVID. So I've been trying to attend as many as possible while I have some extra time. And then as well, I've been also brainstorming myself personally is, how do I reach students on a broader scale outside of like individual one-on-one counseling? And so I'm hoping to put together some type of just like informational town hall with like student affairs, me, like diversity and inclusion for the College of Nursing for students to attend maybe the week or 2 weeks before the start of the fall, just to get some questions answered. Because like I said, I feel like students just have a lot of questions and concerns. And so I'm hoping that maybe some type of just general open forum town hall with some different main departments for the College of Nursing could be a way for students to ask some of those questions. And then maybe even thinking going to the fall, if I can't offer like an in-person mental health event, could there be like a weekly like mindfulness like event students could attend as well, and just like keeping up with self-care. So I also would always say that I'm a resource for students, so I can put that out there as well. I'm trying to make sure my name is out there, so students know I'm here since I am new and I came in during all this happening. So just posting lots of places to make sure people know how to get a hold of me too.
Piggybacking off of Shelby, that's a lot of what I've been doing as well. I've been trying to do presentations for staff, faculty, and students about just anxiety related to COVID and things that they can do to help cope. Another thing that Columbus State has that we've really been advertising, and it's a great time to advertise it, is a cell phone app that we created that has all of the different resources at the college listed, as well as community resources. And it's not just for mental health, but also homeless shelters, food banks. If you need to contact any kind of different agency, it's all in that app. And so we've really been advertising that to our faculty, staff, and students as a resource that they can use to help support any kind of concern they might be going through. In terms of internal things, one thing that Columbus State has been doing is sending out a weekly newsletter that's for faculty and staff, and it's essentially just everybody catching up with each other. So it has little videos of things people are doing at home, different ways to stay engaged. And I think that really helps us to continue to have a community while we're also working remotely.
I'll jump in quickly to say that our NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, has been a great resource for us. They've been doing town halls and just having time for people to gather and talk about different issues, bringing speakers in and offering perspectives and taking Q&A. I've been really impressed with the work that they've been doing. Handshake is our job board. They've also been updating their services and resources, offering virtual career fairs for free for institutions this fall. So I've been very pleased with their efforts. And then on campus, our president has been sending regular updates of what's happening and his willingness to answer questions. We've had numerous town halls as well, with more upcoming. So I think I've been very pleased with our institution's communication processes and channels, resources we've created. Again, I'll mention our YouTube channel, and Taylor has done phenomenal with creating videos out there on all of our services and resources. So it's been just constant communication, but we still know, that there are gaps, and the message that we've been trying to convey is ask. Like, don't assume things, don't speculate things. If you have questions, please ask, and that's coming from our leadership, and we're trying to model that as well in our team.
I would say, again, there are a lot of resources available on every level at the university, as far as their university level, resources and communications and supports in place. I think at the college level, there are also a number of communications and support things put in place. We have a town hall this afternoon centered around returning to campus and what that might look like. And so I think that the avenues of communication have been increased even more so in the last, I would say just in 2020. And so making sure that, staff are able to attend. I think centering students around the conversation in different spaces, right? That's something that we always do that, but just being intentional, like, how does this impact students? Just centering it back to that. I think there's been a widespread effort to create space, to listen and not assume. And so, when it comes down to at least the staff and the students and what they need, not assuming what they need because of a particular box they might fall in, but trying to get their actual story and let them tell you what they actually need right now. Sometimes all they need is for you to listen at how overwhelmed they are, and you try to figure out where you can help, and then here's some other resources that might be able to help you with the rest, kind of thing. But I think assuming positive intent, right? Everybody is juggling a lot, and just kind of reiterating those things. This is not a normal time, and I feel like we could insert, in the midst of a pandemic, at the end of every sentence, every team meeting, everything that we're talking about, we could literally insert that and it would be valid, right? We're operating in, uncertain times, I guess you can say, and just having grace, having grace with each other, having grace with leadership, having grace with, society, students. There's been a number of things. We're still trying to maneuver through this pandemic at the same time that we're watching, the Black Lives Matter movement and the various things happening in society with racist incidents and things like that. The weight is heavy, period, right now. So just trying to have grace, because you don't really ever know what someone's dealing with or what they're trying to manage in the midst of everything else, right? So in addition to all of these resources, making sure that, folks know about them, that this is a thing, here it is, here's a link, this is how this works, or let me connect you to this specific person. I think also just trying to create space, assume positive intent, some of those basic core values that we have, but are needed even more so right now.
Absolutely. So I do want to, as we kind of head into our last couple of questions here, I do want to remind everyone on the call, if you do have questions, to put those into the chat box and we'll get those asked. But next up, I do want to ask, since we've been focusing a lot on challenges and kind of hardship during this time, have there been any positive changes that have come out of, how we're pivoting and doing things differently as a result of COVID?
I can start with that. So I had mentioned earlier that I think access is something that for some of our students is now much easier. Again, particularly with us being a commuter college, students who might not normally have transportation for our services, or they might have a lot of other responsibilities, they're more able to access us if it's just a phone call. And I also think another thing that it has really helped with is just team communication. Not to say that that was poor before, but during this time when you're not working in the office with people every day, you really have to be able to communicate with your team. And so I think that we have been much more intentional with our meetings and just our general, I think Kia mentioned it earlier, just checking in, like how actually are you doing today, not just, oh, hey, you know, what's up? And so I think that's something that has been an improvement and hopefully continues on as COVID dies down.
I'm going to go off of that because I feel like what Ashley is saying is exactly what I was thinking, which is access to services is one big benefit I've seen for students. Working with the College of Nursing students, they're busy, right? A lot of them are doing clinicals. I have graduate students, so they're sometimes parents, and they can quickly jump on while their kids are on their nap and still get counseling, right? Or, you know, maybe fit it around, I have to go to work in like 20 minutes, but I don't have to come to campus and find parking. I can still access you. So that I think has been a huge benefit, is just students being able to get services like in an easier way. And I've actually noticed students have been more reliably showing up for their appointments because of that, because it's easy to access. So I think that will hopefully have a long-term effect. On a more personal level, I think I've had to kind of get back to some basics for myself, like just like getting back to focusing on my basic needs, being patient with myself. As Kia said, grace is so important, I think, right now to give to ourselves and other people, and making sure I'm taking care of myself. So I feel like it kind of almost made me like reevaluate some things I was doing in the sense of how I was taking care of myself and finding a better balance. And so I think it's hopefully something other people can think about as well. Yeah, and then just kind of like forcing you maybe outside your comfort zone a little bit, right? Trying new things that you never thought you were going to try before, like telemental health, right? I never planned on doing counseling this way. So I think just challenging myself to do things differently, try new things, pushing myself outside my comfort zone. I hope that that's something that sticks with me no matter what happens from here forward.
I would say there's definitely been some positives. You know, a few that I can think of. You know, we've always cared about everybody, but I think that there's been this move of compassion for the collective, if that's a way to phrase it. Less I and more we, or more us, or more how, you know what I mean? More empathy, I think, and not that we lacked empathy, but in the hustle and bustle of drop-offs, pickups, you know, managing our own lives, juggling everything on our plates, I think that there has been more opportunities to pause and just consider not just how this impacts us, but how it's impacting others. You know, we are hearing more about what our colleagues might be going through. We're, you know, understanding how this might be impacting folks, right? You know, we've been in it long enough that we recognize that we have more in common than not as far as our concerns and our anxieties for everything that we're facing. So I think that that's been really big and really important. You know, we say the things, we're a team, we're a family, you know, we say those things, but I think right now it's really more than lip service, because we've had to lean into each other. I think definitely stepping up our virtual presence and stepping up our, you know, online game has been a benefit, right? You know, I feel like, you know, as far as certain things, I'm like, yeah, I did that. I put that online. I managed that, right? Different new challenges as far as that go. In the same breath, I'm also the person who talks with mute on. So, you know, balance, we're getting there. But the other thing I would say is there's also been a newfound, back to access, I agree, to the extent that, you know, most of our students are able to access us a little bit differently, and maybe even more so than they were in the past because of this format. The transportation issues aren't a challenge, as you previously stated. I do think, though, that there's also been a different focus on access and underserved populations. You know, for the students who are still having challenges, right? They don't have the technology. They are still facing some of these challenges, right? They're not able to access us in the same way as most of the students. I think it's been really big that we've had to turn the attention back to ourselves to figure out how we can shift the way that we're doing this to accommodate students and kind of meet them where they are. I've had a significant number of phone appointments because students have mentioned, there's a lot going on at home and they don't want to turn on their cameras, or, everybody's at home and so they can't necessarily access the Wi-Fi to do a Zoom meeting and things of that nature. And so, just again, adjusting my own understanding of the narrative to meet students where they are. I think collectively we've also been doing a little bit more of that. And that's important because, we put students in buckets and we try to navigate how we can serve them best. But, these last few months have challenged that in a number of different ways. And so it is a positive that we're doing that, right? It is a positive that we're trying to think about ways that we can support all the students, regardless of what they may be facing or where they are. So yeah, definitely some positives.
I'll echo all these outstanding thoughts and comments and go along with that access piece. As we were thinking about how students could access our services, in creating videos and sharing the content that we typically share in workshops or in individual meetings, now students have that at their fingertips. And with our career fairs going virtual, that a number of our students have, just like any other institution, transportation challenges. This enables them to be at these events, and I'm thrilled by those opportunities. And it's not asking them to commit an hour or an hour and a half, including travel time, to an off-campus destination for a career fair, and they can schedule when they are going to meet with the potential employers that are there. And it allows us to attract some new employers that maybe wouldn't be traveling to Central Ohio for career fairs. So it just opens up more opportunities for our students. So the access piece has been, I think, for me, the brightest light. And institutionally, it's allowed us to ask what do our students really need, and I think it's opened the eyes of more people around campus of some of the situations and scenarios our students are in, and we've been able to support students in different ways, which I'm also thrilled by. And institutionally, it's helped us figure out what is it that we want to be, and how can we better serve our students. And obviously those conversations were happening, but I think there's more urgency put to them because of this. And I think we'll come out as a stronger support. We'll have stronger support mechanisms for our students moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. Last week, Dawn Stewart, who is the Director of Athletics and VP of Student Affairs at Otterbein, had shared, and I shared a couple of times now, that if nothing else, this pandemic has forced us to take a step back and think about really how we're operating as student affairs, or how we're working with students. And some of these things that we're doing is like, we should have been doing them anyway. So I think as a whole, if there's nothing else that we can see positive here, that certainly we are finding a way to do some things differently so that we can increase that access and maintain that access for our students. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box, so I just want to throw out one final question. And it's any final thoughts or advice for listeners as we all continue to prepare for the fall and just a really different academic year.
I'm happy to start that. I've already said it, but it's really the only thing I think that's been keeping me grounded through this whole process. Again, I'm waiting on, my spending night bag is on the porch. I'm prepared for whatever comes, right? But literally just grace. I think a lot of us are overachievers. A lot of us are type A. A lot of us are used to, making sure that we are above and beyond and over, we're used to that. And just having grace. I'm not saying become a slacker in the midst of the COVID pandemic, but I am saying just grace with yourselves, grace with each other, colleagues, students, leadership. We're all trying to navigate this together. And it's not just one institution. I mean, as a whole, we're able to watch and see what's happening around the state, at other institutions with, their layoffs and furloughs, and there's just so many things going on as we try to navigate these times. So, just trying to have grace, I think that's the only thing I've got that's, I think, been consistent through, every week and every month or whatever. Just have grace with yourself. You're doing great. right? Even if you don't think you are, you're doing great. You're here, you showed up, you know, you're making it work, you're juggling kids, there's everything going on. So just have some grace with yourself and you know, pat your own back from time to time. We're making it. You know, we're going to be in nursing homes on hover rounds, still talking about 2020 at some point. So just have some grace.
I'll go off of that. I think this is really going to show people how resilient and strong they are, right? Like on many different levels. And I think it can be a really good reflective, you know, space later to look back and think about how we've all been challenged and what we've all been able to overcome. And I think that's really actually amazing to think about, right? That, you know, all the things that we've had to go through in the last just like few months and where we're at right now. So, like Kia said, I think everyone should give themselves grace and a pat on their back, because people have been very strong and resilient and flexible and had to, you know, deal with different levels of the stress. So thinking about, you know, some advice I would give is definitely just keep taking care of yourself, right? It's so important that you prioritize your self-care. You know, seek support, try to stay connected in one way or another, right? There's so many ways to do that now that we've learned, right? I've learned about a lot of different ways to do that. So stay connected, take care of yourself, seek those resources, right? There's so many resources available. Utilize every single one of them. I tell students, like, you're paying for these resources, use them, right? You know, even if you go once or twice, right? You know, give it a try. You know, and just, you know, be patient with yourself during this process, right? One step at a time sometimes is enough to deal with each day to day. So yeah.
I absolutely agree with both of those, and I don't know if I have a whole lot more to add. But patience for me was the first word that came to mind, and understanding, and this is something I tell students: if we're trying to live up to the same expectations that we set 6 months ago, we're just not doing ourselves justice, because 6 months ago we lived in a completely different time. And so what are realistic expectations that we can set for ourselves today, given the fact that we're going through something that has never been seen in our lifetime? And so patience and understanding are the two words that I try to reflect back on.
It's challenging to add any more insight to what has been shared. What came to mind initially for me is, and I don't know who to give credit to, but it's the phrase, don't let perfect get in the way of good. I have seen that in a lot of different spaces over the past couple of weeks. And I think that as was shared, a lot of us are overachievers and doers, and we want to do everything we can. I think, again, we're all here, knowing that we're all in this together and that we need each other to help figure all of the questions out that we have, that there's no manual for anything that we're doing right now, but we have to rely on one another and be open to learning, to asking questions. And, you know, Kia, I love your just have grace and show grace to yourself and those around you. And just to be constantly reminding ourselves that we need to do that, and that we'll figure it out. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to have a can-do attitude, and we're going to learn a lot along the way. I mean, I can't imagine how much all of us on this panel and listening to this have learned in these last few months this year, and how much more opportunity there is for learning, and just to be open to that and know that, again, we need each other. We need to rely on each other. We've got to use those support networks that we have in place so that we can serve our students in the best manner possible.
All great words of advice. Well, that concludes our roundtable this afternoon. Certainly thank you to all of those joining us, and thank you to our panelists. We did record this session, so if there's anyone who wasn't able to join us, you are certainly welcome and encouraged to share this session out there. But otherwise, really thank you, and I wish you all the best as you get prepared for the fall and this upcoming academic year. But for now, enjoy your Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.